Time. We are almost there, going live today. Croc is missing in Dallas, getting ready for the huge live draft show going on at the Locked On Studios for tomorrow evening. I'll be going live tomorrow at 4 p.m. as well as that stream gets going there for Locked On NFL's coverage of the NFL draft. But today, let's talk mock draft, the final mock draft, the latest going on with the 49ers, Deebo Samuel. Oh my gosh, it's almost time. Let's get this going right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock here. Sans Crocker at BD Peacock on Twitter. Croc getting ready for everything going on with all of the hoopla and the NFL draft that gets going in less than 24 hours. We are here. We were within one passing of the sun with the NFL draft coming. So let's get into my latest mock draft. I've got a two-round mock draft. If you listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show every day, you already heard about my two-round mock draft. I'll talk about some of the things, what I did for the 49ers. There are trades involved in this mock draft. I do want to thank everybody for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay. Whoo. Oh, man. Love seeing everybody jumping in the chat as well. We got a lot of folks fired up, getting ready for this NFL draft. Can't wait for it. It's going to be great. Deebo Samuel, still a Niner. It's looking like, I think, more and more that he's going to remain a Niner as well. And this is last night, Tony Pauline, who was doing a podcast with Trey Wingo on the Pro Football Network, and I know he does a podcast with Crocker occasionally as well. And Tony Pauline said that there was a Godfather offer coming from the New York Jets to the San Francisco 49ers for Deebo Samuel. Now, a Godfather offer, for those of you who haven't seen the movie Godfather, that means it's an offer that you cannot refuse. So that means it would have to be such a big offer that the 49ers cannot say no to it, right? So if that type of offer was made, the 49ers can't say no. Deebo Samuel would be a New York Jet. But he's not a New York Jet. So that means that offer hasn't been made. And if there was an offer, it was not a Godfather type of offer. Are they waiting? Is there a little bit of a standoff? Is there maybe a quiet before the storm because Deebo Samuel and his agent need to be talking with this team, whether it's the Jets or another team, to try to get a new contract done? Because Deebo's not getting traded unless he's agreeing to do a new contract with that team, right? So maybe that's what's happening. Maybe that's why things are all of a sudden so quiet the day before the draft. Maybe this has to be a situation where the Niners want the guy who's on the clock at 10 when the New York Jets are picking. So there's a lot that goes into this. I still think, I've had it at about 37%. I still think there's a better chance that Deebo Samuel stays with the 49ers, they get a deal done, than if he is traded. Now, there was a report from Josina Anderson today, Wednesday, that said somebody texted me from a league source on a top 5 NFL draft team. So that means it's either one of the New York teams, the Jets or the Giants, the Texans, the Jaguars, or the Lions. Of those teams, I could definitely see both New York teams being interested in Deebo Samuel potentially, but Jets is really the one. And I don't know if the Jets was the team, but one of those teams picking in the top 5. A source with that organization told Josina Anderson, quote, Deebo isn't getting traded. She also said, we all know things can evolve, just sharing the current sentiment from a source. So that's the vibe I get as well. And maybe if the 49ers even were willing to listen to offers, clearly that offer hasn't been big enough for the 49ers to say yes. And Deebo Samuel currently still in the 49ers. And as we heard from John Lynch earlier on this week, It's not a smart thing to be getting rid of players as good as Deebo Samuel. I think cooler heads will prevail. Whatever happened at the beginning of negotiations that really upset Deebo Samuel, that kind of stuff can get figured out over the next couple of months. And I fully expect if a deal is not done, if it's not some crazy offer, which I said yesterday, probably wouldn't be smart for a team to even offer that much as it would take to get Deebo Samuel, plus give him his $25 million per year salary. I don't think that would be a smart move for most teams. The Jets have a ton of extra picks, so I guess you could see where the Jets would be going with this, where they're on the clock at 10, and they're thinking, well, we like Deebo better than the wide receivers in this draft. We have a bunch of extra picks. We could trade 10 and 38 and still have number 4 and number 35. And I think when you're talking about what a Godfather offer would be, it would be at least pick 10 and pick 38. I don't think the 49ers would take just 10 by itself. It would have to be something else. And maybe it'd be even something else the next year too. So it would have to be a pretty big offer, which to be honest with you, for the Jets doesn't make a lot of sense. Unless they like Deebo more than pick 10. And I could totally see that. Getting a young superstar player that they know has no bust potential because they know how good he is. They know how good he is already in the scheme that he already knows that the Jets are currently running. So that's where the Deebo thing stands right now. Will somebody eventually pony up for Deebo Samuel and pay what it would cost? We will find out. And that's got to happen basically before the first hour or so of the NFL draft. I've got my 2-round mock draft. I'm not going to go through every single pick because we don't have that kind of time. And I do want to get into the chat a little bit with you guys. And by the way, thank you so much for all the people jumping into the chat already. I can see you guys are fired up for the 2022 NFL draft. Make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On NFL channel here on YouTube if you are live with us. If you're listening in your car, maybe on your way to work Thursday morning, I hope still Deebo Samuel is a 49er at that time. If not, the draft later in the evening is going to get a lot more interesting in the first round. But make sure you guys are all subscribed to not only the Locked On 49ers YouTube channel, but the Locked On NFL YouTube channel as well. And I am going to go live tomorrow night, 4 o'clock Pacific time before the draft as well, right here on the Locked On 49ers channel. Probably also without Croc, who will be getting ready for that live. He's going to be on the air a lot on the Locked On NFL channel live. And I might jump on there with him as well. So, mock draft time. Can I give myself a little pat on the back here? Right on the 10 million. Can you guys see that? 10 million on my back. This is the 10 million listeners in 1 month shirt. We got sent these shirts from the Locked On Network because the network had 10 million listeners in 1 month, doing big things over here. And we've since blown that number out of the water. But I'm going to pat myself on the 10 million back here because I was the first person I know of in the entire NFL media community to put Trayvon Walker number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars in a mock draft. And that was almost exactly 1 month ago on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, because I know Trent Baalke. I know Trent Baalke better than he knows himself. I knew he was not going to be drafting a short-armed Aiden Hutchinson number 1 overall. And I had Trayvon Walker going there, and I did not change it for this mock draft. It's, all the reports coming out of Las Vegas today is that it's going to be Trayvon Walker. He's the dude for the Jaguars. He's going number 1 overall. So that's what I had going on still to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1.1 in this 2022 2-round mock draft with trades. Just going to jam through some of these picks really quick. Aiden Hutchinson 2 to Detroit, and really any team but the Jaguars, I probably would have Hutchinson going number 1 overall there. But, that's a total Trent Baalke Jaguars move to go Trayvon Walker number 1. And he's a good prospect. And he could be a monster in the NFL as well. Ike Ekwonu. There's a lot of folks out there that love Ike Ekwonu, and his tape is fun to watch because he is a monster of a masher in the offensive line. Is he going to be an ace pass protector in the NFL? You think he can be if you're drafting him as high as Ekwonu was going to go in the NFL draft. At worst, maybe he's just a stud guard. Would you draft Quentin Nelson, say, number 3? So there is some safety net there with Ekwonu because he's going to be a really good run blocker. And even if he's a guard, he'll probably be one of the best in the league, even if he's not, a true awesome left tackle pass protector. But he has some time to figure that out, whether he starts at guard or starts at right tackle with Laramie Tunsil over there at left tackle with the Houston Texans. Ahmad Sauce Gardner going number 4 to the New York Jets. Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama, going to the New York Giants at 5-6. Is not a quarterback. Not a quarterback. Stay tuned to find out who is going to be drafting the quarterbacks in this mock draft. Charles Cross. I just really think that these GMs aren't insane enough to overdraft all of these quarterbacks, right? And when you are the Carolina Panthers and you haven't had a the same starting offensive tackle for 2 straight years, going all the way back to Jordan Gross, and you have that obvious need, whoever the quarterback is going to be better because you draft an offensive tackle here. Plug and play, left tackle in the NFL, Charles Cross out of Mississippi State to the Carolina Panthers. And I have a feeling they're going to become calling. And maybe the 49ers do finally trade Jimmy Garoppolo and not Deebo Samuel on Thursday or Friday. And Deebo stays, and maybe Jimmy Garoppolo ends up with the Carolina Panthers. I just think that's the best way to go about this for the Panthers. And they don't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick. So I'm sure the Panthers would be willing to trade out. Will they get those offers to trade out of number 6? I don't know. And then maybe they could draft the quarterback on day 2. But I just can't go any other direction than give them their biggest need and a really good player in Charles Cross at offensive tackle and bypass the quarterback at number 6. Derek Stingley Jr. to the New York Giants, corner at 7. Kayvon Thibodeau to the Falcons at 8. I don't know if there's a slide in store for him. I already feel like this is kind of a slide because I think he is one of the top 5 best prospects in this draft for what he can do getting after the quarterback and just that length and athleticism and burst he has off the line of scrimmage. Seahawks doing Seahawks things, going to the small school of Northern Iowa, drafting offensive tackle Trevor Penning, and the 2nd pick by the New York Jets, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State, because they couldn't get a deal done for Deebo, so they're going wide receiver. Okay, next I'm just going to go through some. That's the top 10 of my mock draft. Go listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show if you want to hear my entire 2-round mock draft. I'll talk about what I have the 49ers doing in this mock draft. If you listen to this show, you should probably not be surprised by that and some of the other highlights from this mock in over the course of the 2 rounds. And we'll get into the chat a little bit too and see what you guys think. I want to hear who you guys think the 49ers will select, not only at 61, but all the way down at 262, the last pick in the NFL draft, Mr. Irrelevant. Who do you think the 49ers will select at 262 in this NFL draft? I gave my name yesterday, or not 2 days ago, on the podcast when we were talking wide receivers here. But I want to let the folks out there know about Shady Rays. We're talking about high-end sunglasses. We are talking about premium high-end finishes, durable frames, well-constructed, polarized lenses. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. And sunglasses are just way too expensive. So I love companies like this. I love Shady Rays. They sent me a pair, and they're fantastic sunglasses. I don't have them right here. They're out in the car, I think. But they're awesome. And you don't need to spend $200 on sunglasses when you can get sunnies from Shady Rays that are just amazing. And how about this? Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every single pair. It's an insane protection program you won't wear else. Not only broken, but lost sunglasses, they will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happens. So give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, an extra little bonus here. It's a company with a heart. 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays exclusively for our listeners. Get over to shadyrays.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. All right. I told you guys already about the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. You are going to want to subscribe to that and get all 3 days of our live draft coverage from the studios in Dallas. Eric Crocker is there. Pick-by-pick analysis from the local team, experts, draft gurus. That is Thursday, tomorrow night. Tonight, if you're listening to this on Thursday, April 28th, 7 p.m. Eastern, available on the Locked On NFL YouTube and the Odyssey app. All right. Let's get into the chat a little bit here as we go into this mock draft a little bit further. This from the Newt. Don't know who they like, but with the Alex Mack retirement, they are going center. Absolutely. I do not have. Oh, look at this. Who's this guy? Who's this guy showing up in the chat? Not returning my texts. It's okay. It's okay, Croc. I know you're a busy man. I know you're big time in me right now. That's cool. But so funny. Anyway, yeah, center could absolutely be it, and I would not be shocked by a center. I'm going to go through a couple of names here in this mock draft that could be that fit for the 49ers in round 2. Here's a big move, though, that I have with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's just too much heat around the Steelers, and they've been in the division with a guy who's super athletic and a player who is so hard to defend against in Lamar Jackson. And the Pittsburgh Steelers play against this guy twice a year. And he's the best prospect in this class at quarterback. I don't have him going at 6 to the Panthers. I don't have him going to the top 10, but I do have the Steelers moving up from 20, just a little bit, 5 picks up to number 15 in a trade to draft Malik Willis. And that is the first quarterback selected in this class. I do feel good about the Steelers going up to try to get Malik Willis, especially if it's not going to cost them a ton. Otherwise, they might just sit back and see what happens. Another trade that I love this year is the Kansas City Chiefs going to get Jameson Williams. I just think it's too good of a fit. And the Chiefs have just a ton of draft picks, and they're not going to have a dozen players make their roster, right? So they can move around. They can add some picks. They can go future picks. I have the Chiefs going up to number 12 and I really think number 12 is a hinge point for a team that could trade up. I think 9 with the Seattle Seahawks could be one of those as well. And I mentioned 6, just the cost to go all the way up to 6. I don't know if a team would be willing to pay it. And that's why I have 12 as the first trade in this mock draft, with the Kansas City Chiefs going up with 12 with the Minnesota Vikings to select Jameson Williams. It's too good of a fit. And they're so aggressive. The Chiefs are so aggressive. Brett Veach, Andy Reid lets him do whatever he needs to do. Ownership lets them do whatever they need to do. They can be aggressive. They can give up multiple first-round picks, even for a guy with a torn ACL, because Jameson Williams will be back this year at some point before the playoffs, even if he's just a package player in the playoffs for you. His dynamic ability with Patrick Mahomes, his, those breakaway routes when he's running, go routes or posts or the catch and run stuff, he can take a short pass to the house, or those deep crossers especially, and really put stress on a defense. They're not going to have that without Tyreek Hill anymore. And I think Jameson Williams is the best fit, the top receiver in this class. If he didn't have a torn ACL, he's the second wide receiver I have going here. But I really love that fit with Kansas City going up to get Jameson Williams with all their extra picks. We have another trade here. The third trade is the Green Bay Packers going up for wide receiver. So the way I see it, the run on receivers is going between around, the teens, pick 10 to 20 or so. And we've got the Packers on the outside looking in of that at 22, and the Kansas City Chiefs at 29 and 30 on the outside looking in, right? So that's why I have those two teams coming up. I've got the Green Bay Packers coming up from 22 to 17 with the Los Angeles Chargers to draft. I really like Olave for them, but he was already gone one pick ahead of him by the Saints, which is why this trade needed to be done for the Packers to get up and get Drake London instead. Although Drake London might be the first wide receiver off the board, because I don't think he should be the top guy. I like Drake London, but man, just listening to everybody who's plugged in, teams love Drake London, and a ton of teams apparently have Drake London as their wide receiver 1 in this class. Moving into the round 2 portion of this mock draft, just all edge, wide receiver, and offensive lineman. I mean, every team, it feels like, needs those positions, and there's going to be multiple runs of those positions all through the draft. We've got Ojabo to the Jets at 35, Ebiketie to the Giants right after that at 36. More edge rushers. The Steelers going with Nick Bonito, although my colleague Matt Williamson from the Peacock and Williamson NFL show says that they're going to go wide receiver in round 2. So maybe it should be a wide receiver, maybe Jalen Tolbert or Alec Pierce or someone like that in round 2. But the wide receiver run was already gone by that point. in round 2 for the Steelers. We had Benito, Drake Jackson, Josh Paschal, D'Angelo Malone, tons of edge rushers flying off the board in round 2, but a trade I like because I do think the 49ers are coming up in round 2. I cannot see John Lynch, regardless of what happens with the Deebo. I mean, if the 49ers trade Deebo Samuel or maybe even trade Jimmy Garoppolo and end up with an extra pick this year, that probably makes it more likely the 49ers stay at 61. But I'd be willing to put a lot of money that the 49ers make at least one selection in this draft before pick 61, however that happens. I can't see, with all the picks, 9 selections, John Lynch said that he doesn't think that they have that many holes in their roster to draft that many players. And there is some depth in this class, but there's also a little bit of a drop-off, 50-55 every time I do a mock draft and look at this thing. And maybe one really nice player will fall to the 49ers at 61, but maybe it's just one, and maybe it's none. And you're at the mercy of the other teams ahead of you in which player that is at which position that does fall to you, even if a really nice player does fall at 61. So I think John Lynch will be active. He will go up. And I really like the marriage of the Chicago Bears and the 49ers potentially getting together in a trade. Going up, 13 spots to pick 48. It's already the second selection for the Bears. I have the Bears going George Pickens. Love the fit there with George Pickens, a really good deep ball receiver in the second round. And who, he in a few years, we would be talking about George Pickens as the best receiver from this draft. To go along with a great deep ball thrower in Justin Fields, I think that's a perfect pick and a perfect fit for the Bears. But their second first-round pick at 48, that's where I have the 49ers coming up from 61 to 48 with the Bears to draft Jaquan Brisker. And in the ultimate mock draft, Croc and I had the Niners projected to take Jaquan Brisker, but we didn't have to wait to see if every other team was going to let him pass by, and I don't think the 49ers will. Once Petrie is off the board, once Lewis Seen, Dax Hill, there's so many really good safeties in this class, but I don't think any of those guys are going to make it all the way to 61. So I do like the 49ers moving up. Maybe it's for even Tyler Linderbaum. He was 31 in this mock draft to me to the Bengals. Does he get to the second round? Maybe that's a possibility. But I just can't see the 49ers staying, whether it's Linderbaum, whether it is a safety, maybe it's a wide receiver, because with the Deebo stuff, the wide receiver was already, I think, a need for the 49ers, even more of a need now, even if there is no Deebo Samuel trade, because you can't be sure he's going to show up to training camp, and you can't be sure at this point he's going to show up to the season. And then, if you do sign Deebo to a huge deal, can you sign Ayuk then soon after to a huge deal if he turns into a stud player, right? So I do have the 49ers moving up in this one, though, to get Jaquan Brisker, just because of the fit, the need. Really good player. I think he would be one of those players the 49ers put a gold helmet next to his name because he's a leader. He started a lot of football games. He's a very versatile player at safety, height, weight, speed guy. Really checks a lot of boxes for the 49ers, and they've been to the Penn State Pro Day in person, and they had Jaquan Brisker for a meeting as well. So there's a lot of connection there with Jaquan Brisker and the 49ers, but they might have to move up to get him. So the Bears at 61, this is the last pick I'll talk about in this mock draft. I had the Bears, after moving down with the 49ers at pick 61, where the Niners were originally selecting, taking Cam Jurgens, the center from Nebraska. The 49ers stick, and as a lot of folks in the chat, and, I could see that if the 49ers do stay at 61, Cam Jurgens might be the guy, the center from Nebraska, probably the second rated center, especially for those teams that run outside zone after Tyler Linderbaum. And I don't think Linderbaum will fall necessarily far enough for the 49ers to make a move up and get him. So maybe it's Cam Jurgens, who the 49ers have also met with and also been to that pro day in person out of Nebraska. Cam Jurgens, the center from Nebraska. I have him going 61 to the Bears, who are going to run the same Shanahan-style offense there with their new offensive coordinator. That could be a fit for the 49ers at 61 as well. So I just like that spot for him. And I would prefer pick 93 in the third round for one of these offensive linemen. There's a ton of good ones. There is not only Cam Jurgens, but there is Cole Strange, who I like a lot. And I think I might like him a hair more than Cam Jurgens. We'll talk a lot more about this stuff before day 2 of the NFL draft, after day 1 tomorrow, and sort of set the stage and set the board for what it looks like going into day 2 with all the picks the 49ers have coming up. So we'll talk more about how I have those guys ranked, but there's a number of players that I would prefer at 91, but I could absolutely see being a pick for the 49ers if they stay at 61 along the offensive line. All right, let's get moving here and talk a little bit about before I get into the chat. And again, I want to see who are your favorite prospects for the NFL draft for the 49ers, really in any round, but especially those guys late, the Mr. Irrelevant, 262. Who's that going to be? Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Always have Built Bars in the car, ready to go when I need a snack on a long drive. When you commute to work, make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventure. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. It's the most important combination you can have in a snack because if it's not good, you're not going to eat it. And if it's not healthy, you probably should not be eating it. Built Bars hits both healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. We've got Built Bar Puffs, tons of new flavors all the time at Built.com. And my favorite peanut butter back in stock. Most bars contain only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, only 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Be on the lookout for those Built granola bars coming as well to Built.com. So get over there to the website, Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Oh, I can't wait. I get a batty around the NFL draft. There's too many names coming into my head. I forget names of players that have already existed in the league. I was trying to think of who was even in last year's draft class, and I couldn't think of it earlier today. I called my son instead of Leo. I called him Deebo earlier today. That's what's going on in my brain. That's how this stuff just enters my brain and makes me forget about other things normally happening in my life. Kenny says Derek Young. Yep. That's it. Derek the Freak Young, 6'2", 220 pounds. That is my pick for Mr. Irrelevant this year. Pick 262, the last selection in the NFL draft. He's got something to him, and they used him in every kind of way at Lenore-Ryan. Little Lenore-Ryan, he might go a little higher. Maybe some teams like him more than I've seen with some other draft analysts because nobody gives him a lot of credit. But to do that big and fast definitely has my interest. Alan says Cole Strange's RAS, that is a relative athletic score, I believe is what RAS stands for, is really good. I like what I've seen from him also. Yeah, I mean, he comes from a small school of Chattanooga, but even going back a couple of years, he went toe-to-toe. I saw him pancake Javon Kinlaw, and that was when he was only a sophomore, right? And he's only gotten better. He was really good at the Senior Bowl. He played mostly guard in college, but he played center at the Senior Bowl, which I think was really smart for him and obviously makes him a huge fit for the 49ers. I like Cole Strange a little bit more than Cam Jurgens. I love the way Cam Jurgens explodes out of his stance. He is super athletic. Cole Strange has a little bit more size, a little bit more power. He can move people a little bit better. Still has a lot of athleticism. Still fits Kyle Shanahan's wide zone scheme. Can get out block on the second level. A little more attitude from Cole Strange, which is why I like him a little more versatility. But a team that just wants that straight up, we're a zone blocking team. We want a center, a guy who's played center started for 3 years at center, then maybe Cam Jurgens is your guy. And I could absolutely see those guys both being high on the 49ers board. And I can see both guys going off the board there late in round 2 at around pick 61, even though it'd be a better value. And I would hope and maybe press my luck that they would be there at 93 or within range of maybe that's the play, trading up from 93 instead of trading up from 61. So that way you can get a player you really like that falls to you at 61. You go up for one of these offensive linemen in round 3. Let's see here. Oh, this guy's always showing up and he's super annoying. So I'm going to put him in timeout. You're welcome, everybody. Getting into the chat here, having a lot of fun. I think there's a rogue Jets fan. Jets fans are weird, by the way. There's a rogue Jets fan that keeps creeping into the chat and trying to stir stuff up with people, trying to tell us that the 49ers are going to trade Deebo for a 3rd-round pick or some crap. Look, and my thing with Deebo, and I've gotten into a lot of these fights on Twitter, and it's always the same thing. They're always like, oh, the fleece god, Joe Douglas, he'll never give up that much for Deebo Samuel. And my answer is not trying to talk them into what the Jets should give up for Deebo Samuel. My response is, I don't care. Good. Don't trade for him. The 49ers should be asking for the moon for Deebo Samuel, and by all accounts and all reports, they are, which is smart. That's exactly the way they should do it. If a team blows you away, if they truly do give you that Godfather offer that you can't refuse, then you take it. But that's what it would take. And if not, you're gladly not doing any trade, and you go forward with Deebo Samuel, try to mend that relationship and sign him long-term. And I really think they can mend that relationship. And I think after this weekend, when we have some clarity on that, I think they will know, Deebo's team will know, look, they're not trading him. They said no to all these offers. We got to figure this out and get a deal done. And they'll have something by July, and everyone's going to be fine with it. And, and I'm sure John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan love Deebo so much and will try to get together with him once the draft is over and squash whatever this crap is, And look, maybe a team does come calling and the 49ers are willing to listen where they weren't willing to listen before. If they do trade him, but again, it would probably be a pretty huge deal, which might be better for the 49ers in the long term. In the short term, you're probably going to get worse, even if you draft a receiver at 10, because there's no guarantee that guy's going to be ready to go. And he's certainly going to be a lot different than Deebo Samuel. Even the receivers in this class that are compared to Deebo Samuel, they're so much different. You can't expect to get another Deebo. So you shouldn't even really try. Although Kyle Shanahan has a type, and he's probably going to try to draft people who are good running after the catch. But the offense could look a lot different with Trey Lance. And I would expect more downfield passing. There would have to be more with Trey Lance versus Jimmy Garoppolo, right? So adding a receiver that's got some range, that's got a big catch radius. If strong arm, maybe a little inaccurate sometimes, is the scouting report on Trey Lance, then help him be better by finding a guy who's good at getting downfield that can have a big catch radius to pull in some of these deals, these passes that might not be pinpoint. Let's see. Mid-round question. This is from RDC. Mid-round question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much is Kyle going to love Kyle Phillips? How about Chig Okonkwo? Chig Okonkwo is the tight end that ran like a 4.5 flat, 4.49 or something like that. I watched a little bit of Chig, and I liked the speed. But again, Kyle Shanahan, Jelani Woods is an interesting one too, out of Virginia. Just the tall, fast, athletic tight end, really raw. Like, that's not really the style of player Kyle Shanahan likes. He doesn't like the straight line-ish guys that are tall that much. He likes the jitterbugs. So I could absolutely see Kyle Phillips, who is that guy. He's the Trent Taylor of this draft. No doubt. I would not be shocked at all if on day 3, and the 49ers might double up on receivers in this class if they did draft Kyle Phillips to be that sort of slot player. And, he's going to have to fight Bill Belichick probably for the right to draft Kyle Phillips in this class. So yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of fans probably aren't on Kyle Phillips, but and he's not like one of those height, weight, speed guys that you get super excited about. But, when it's 3rd down and 4, he can get open underneath. And Kyle Phillips will probably go higher than people expect. And I could absolutely see Kyle Shanahan really liking Kyle Phillips. Let's see. Carlos says in all caps, calm down, Carlo. Come on. He says, hope this teaches the front office a lesson. Can't negotiate the same way with every player. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there needs to be blame on the front office on this. They're negotiating in private. They're trying to do what's best for the organization. That's fine. And you should try to treat your players the same, right? And Deebo Samuel's the one that's out here doing things more publicly. And I just don't think it's great for anybody to be negotiating in public because it gets ugly. And fans don't need to see how the sausage is made. It's making fans upset, right? And that's hurting Deebo's brand as much as it's helping him, even if he gets a little bit more money in the end. And you might have to get that money from a worse team that doesn't use him as well as the 49ers. But I don't really blame Deebo either, right? He's trying to get paid. Maybe he feels slighted by the 49ers. But again, I think it's not that big of a deal. And I think they can get together and figure this thing out, because I don't see how it could be that big of a deal if he ends up getting as much money as he wants, and it's not usage, and it's not the city that he's playing in or anything like that. It's personal. How could it be that deep of a wound personally that just happened at some point 2 weeks ago? Like, what could have possibly built up that's that big of a deal in that short amount of time? So whatever it is, I really feel like they can squash it. And it's his personality. He's a competitive guy, right? So you feel crossed, and I could see him being super upset about it, but then I think you can mend that as well. And you have a best friend for life, right? You've been through things with some of your best friends, with your husband or wife or whatever, and you go through things, and you're better after those trials and tribulations because of it, because you're able to come through the other side and you figure some things out and you learn more about each other. Alan says, if San Francisco gets number 10, I wouldn't even use it on a wide receiver, trade back, or go edge. That's exactly what I did in my how do you get better if you trade Deebo Samuel 49ers mock draft. If the right wide receiver is there, you can take a wide receiver, but we learned from the DeForest Buckner situation. You don't just get one pick. That's why I'm saying if it's just pick 10, I'm not that interested. Just keep Deebo Samuel. You're going to draft a wide receiver and cross your fingers and hope that he's better and cheaper or as good and cheaper. Like that's the best possible outcome. Maybe it's like the Diggs and Justin Jefferson trade for Minnesota where you end up getting a better player on a rookie contract, which that worked out well for them. But Buffalo's not upset. They needed a veteran player that was ready to be really good right now for their young quarterback. And that helped them. And I don't think they would undo that trade because they needed the now player and they needed the guarantee of that. And the 49ers have a young quarterback. They need a now receiving core for him. So they need to develop their quarterback. And I think a veteran like Deebo Samuel that can do a lot on his own would help better than a draft pick at 10. But you could potentially draft a star player that's even better than Deebo on a rookie contract at 10. It's possible. But I'm with you. I would rather take multiple swings. And what I did when I did that mock draft on the simulator is I traded down from 10, did take an edge player, and then with the multiple picks in round 2 at that point, took 2 wide receivers. Boom, boom. A couple of swings at it. I think that's probably the way to go for the 49ers. I think we learned a lot from the DeForest Buckner situation. And maybe the one thing we learned most about the DeForest Buckner situation is even if it seems like a good deal, man, they're paying him a lot of money and gave us a nice draft pick, still might not be worth it in the end. So that's the other lesson from that. Let's see. RDC says Okonkwo has the Delaney Walker juice vibe. I can see the Delaney Walker comp there. What was Delaney Walker's name? Training camp and all the players laughed at him. D-Love, is that what he called himself? That's so funny. Romeo Dubs out of Nevada. He's a nice little prospect. I do like him on day 3. I mean, there's a ton of prospects in this class. And there's different stages of it, right? There's the top 4 or 5 receivers in round 1. Then there's like a nice little group of guys that I think you're going to go early round 2. They're not going to get to the 49ers at 61, which is why I keep talking about trade up. Feel the same way about safety. Feel the same way about wide receivers if those are the targets there, and probably some edge guys as well. And like then there's a huge group of guys that I like in round 3. I wouldn't expect them to be day 1 starters or even early career starters, or maybe not starters at all, but really nice, maybe dart throws at wide receiver, maybe slot guys, maybe just really raw boomer bust type prospects, but a lot of nice day 3 players as well. But I wouldn't want to only go with the day 3 guy, especially if you are going to trade Deebo Samuel or you're at all worried that you're not going to get a deal done, even if you don't trade Deebo Samuel this weekend. I'd want to target one of those guys that I think is going to go in the top 50 in that case, or maybe slides to the 49ers at 61, and then have a little fun and maybe get a backup type, a rotational type of a wide receiver there on day 3, because the 49ers have a need. They need numbers at wide receiver, even with Deebo Samuel. All right, a couple more questions here, and then we'll get going. Draft Eve. If we can draft like Peacock's last mock, I'll trade Lynch for BP and a Built Bar right now. Oh, you can throw in a Built Bar on that? I would think a Built Bar might be going the other way, but okay. I like that trade. I like that trade. Look, I've been a fake GM longer than John Lynch has been a real GM. I will say that. So I got a lot of experience with these mock drafts. That's for sure. Let's see. Bay Gibson says the 49ers should trade Deebo for Dre Greenlaw to the Jets for 10, 35, 38, and 69. I will say, and I've talked about this before, obviously scheme fit, Dre Greenlaw, he's played for their coach. The 49ers do have, if the 49ers come out in base or come out in base, all 3 linebackers can play. But if they come out in nickel, which is about 70% of the time in the NFL these days, either Dre Greenlaw or Al Shayer is going to sit if they're all healthy, right? So is there value there? Could the 49ers add Dre Greenlaw to a trade and I like where your head's at here, could they add Dre Greenlaw to a trade just to help the Jets feel better about a ridiculous trade? And I still don't think it'd be 10 plus 35 and 38. But let's say the 49ers are saying, hey, you got to give us 10 plus 38 plus a 2 next year or something. And the Jets are like, no, we just can't do that. So, okay, what if we add Dre Greenlaw to it, and maybe some, move around some late round picks, because for some reason, every trade now in the NFL, there's like a 5th here and a 6th there and a future 7th. And they're just shuffling deck chairs, trying to confuse people, to try to figure out what the value even is of this trade. Maybe that's how you help the Jets feel better about doing this trade, is you throw in a Dre Greenlaw, or you throw in, one of those 6th rounders or a 5th rounder this year. And the 49ers have a ton of day 3 picks, and I just don't think they need all of those picks. So then the 49ers will be getting a lot more quality and giving away some quantity in this draft, just to make the Jets feel better about, this massive trade that they made. So that does make a lot of sense to me, if the 49ers did add something else going back to New York in a Deebo trade to help them feel better about the massive package that they're giving up. Greenlaw for Dillard, Andre Dillard. Yeah, there's some interesting players that might be available for trade, and I could see the 49ers attacking that. Maybe the 49ers go sign J.C. Treader once Alex Mack decides he's going to retire, instead of drafting that player and expecting a rookie to come in and play in Kyle Shanahan's offense and being the guy. Andre Dillard, Kadarius Toney. That would be an interesting fit for the 49ers if he comes at a huge discount, which it seems like he would if they're just already trying to dump him. But that would also be a huge red flag about what he's like in the locker room or something, because what are you even doing there? He was a 1st-round pick just last year. You shouldn't even know really exactly what kind of player he's going to be, but maybe people in the building don't like him. And do you even want to bring that into the 49ers? But, a guy that can do a lot with the ball in his hands. If you do trade away Deebo Samuel, maybe that's another player that you throw into the mix at wide receiver for the 49ers. Last one here. Let's talk a little bit more about the center position. You think they'd sign J.C. Treader instead of moving Brunskill inside? I mean, I think it's all on the table. That could absolutely be it. I mean, but if you move Brunskill inside, now there's a new hole at right guard. Who's starting at right guard? You've already lost your left guard from last year. So it's at a certain point, if Alex Mack retires, you've got to add bodies on the offensive line, because that means you're probably penciling, if Brunskill moves to center, you've got Trent Williams on the left side. You've got Jalen Moore playing left guard, maybe, with Brunskill at center and Aaron Banks at right guard. Does Banks play left guard? Moore plays right guard? I don't know, but that would be your guard tandem, I would assume, with Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. So you're already getting worse from last year, losing Lake and Tomlinson. They've got to be trying to get better somehow. And I mean, I like Brunskill at center maybe as much as I like him at guard. I actually liked him at swing tackle better than anything. So I don't know, but you start to get very thin there on the offensive line. So you would have to add something. And maybe the plan would be draft a center on day 2 and you let him compete and see if he's ready. And if he's ready, you keep Brunskill at guard. If he's not ready, you have Brunskill play center, and then the rookie backs up a couple of spots and you use one of the other second-year guys at guard. So there is a lot to consider there with the draft and trying to figure out what the top need is for the 49ers. But yeah, it's guard. I mean, it's center, it's wide receiver. Not knowing what's going to happen with the veterans on the current roster, I would put those both probably behind strong safety, but it could become center real quick, right? If they know something we don't about Alex Mack, it could become wide receiver real quick if Deebo Samuel gets traded. And I think any of those positions were already needs too, but they would vault up to the top instantly. It is going to be a super fun NFL draft. Thanks everybody for jumping on the live chat with me here. We'll be doing another live chat tomorrow before the NFL draft officially gets going. Make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Croc will be live there all 3 days of the draft. I'll be jumping on as well, talking about not only the 49ers, but the entire NFL. If you want my full 2-round mock draft, if that little taste earlier wasn't enough for you, go listen to Wednesday's Peacock and Williamson NFL show. And yeah, we'll be talking a lot this weekend. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen. Be back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.